that if there was just a little bit more light, I know would feel safer.
All right. Does anybody have any other comments they want to add about lighting or anything else? Okay. Should we move on to the minutes from July 27th? Okay, I couldn't remember. So that was really the last time we had a meeting. I guess we were bumped 1 month and.
Yes.
All right.
That was the last meeting I had record of.
Okay. Carolyn, can you scroll down just a little bit so we can see the top of the second page? All right. Does anybody have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right. Michael motions. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Catherine seconds. And then should we just vote by chatting in the chat bar or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be great. That makes it easy.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we have Lisa, I, Sarah approved, Michael, I, Catherine, I, Zoe, I. Who are we missing? Oh, I think we're only missing Helen, and I'll get her. She's having some. She keeps bouncing back and forth. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. After reading the minutes, I was wondering if when we do the liaison report, we could kind of touch on some of the things that were in the last minutes, like the Lone Oak parking situation, and there's like another thing.
What was the other one?
I don't remember. There's Carolyn, if you still have the notes up, could you show them again when you're done with what you're doing?
Yeah, I can bring it back up.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the Community Wildlife Protection Plan, I know we're reviewing it, but was there an action that council was going to take for it too? I think I just had a question on that. That was on the
yeah. No, it should probably go back to council as soon as all the other committees are finished. Right. It is going to Public Works did look at it briefly as well. The only one that hasn't looked at it yet is Public Safety, but they will not meet until the end of November. So. Okay. They've got a little time. So that actually means that more than likely you guys we'll be going over that next, and you'll have all your comments in. Next month we'll hopefully have like a kind of like a final draft, and then it'll go to Public Safety in that format.
All right. And then, Karen, also like the Lone Oak question about parking, like I know, didn't that sort of get wrapped up in the street survey? I don't know if anything happened with that yet.
Well, it got wrapped up in the street survey, and then it came back again as a individual piece because council actually decided to send a questionnaire similar to what we used to do in zoning changes. To all of the residents of Lone Oak to see. So one of the potential options was to take so many feet from the dead end of Lone Oak forward to make that an emergency access and a no parking zone. And it really wasn't what the residents at the end of Lone Oak wanted, because they really wanted permit parking. So the survey results came back, and basically nobody really wanted to make it a no parking street at the end of the street. So it's kind of a back to the drawing board kind of issue. And I don't know if the mayor was going to bring it up when she brought back her street survey, but one of the concerns I have is how we do surveys. And I really think we need to be very mindful and how we do them. And there's a science to creating a survey. And I really wanted to see that percentage of how many people wanted X, Y, and Z. Similar to what you can do with SurveyMonkey. You can actually see the percentage of people said yay or nay for a certain issue. And I really think we need to step back and think about getting our surveys professionally designed so that we actually get the information that's useful and we're not asking questions we already know the answer to. So it's like determining first, like, what do we really need to know? And giving that to a professional to design the questions to help us inform those decisions. So I don't think anything's going to happen with Lone Oak. I think it's going to just probably default to a larger discussion about community planning overall and CIP projects. I think the painting is, from what I understand, Carolyn, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one-way paint redo on Sunflower Trail, I believe, is already underway, or the paint's ordered. So that
I believe we should have a purchase order for that, and it should be signed pretty quickly. It's the one-way painting on the villas should be happening fairly soon. That is a different type of paint. That's a thermoplastic paint, so it's a little bit different than just a normal street paint. But it should happen fairly soon, actually.
So I think from the survey, that's the only real action item that's taking. Was there one other thing, Carolyn?
Moving the porta potty station. I mean the doggy station on the Lone Oak.
So those are the two things that actually had action. The rest of it is to be determined, and we have an election coming up, so that could change the direction of how we look at all of that too.
True.
But for now, I think it's done. Then, we have the budget. The council passed a new budget. Some of the things got restored on our wish list. Some things like library cards and a few other items got restored. And then there's been some discussion about committees and what committees do. And Carolyn, I don't know if you have that chart that was done that shows what committees we're supposed to do for the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now, and it should. It's also the final item of the evening to discuss that.
I can bring it up if that'll help.
Okay.
It should be coming up in just a second. Oh,
so one of the things we discussed was moving into a place where first we revised the volunteer application so we know what committees people really want to serve on and if they really want to serve on more than one. But trying to at least, thank you, for the remainder of this year, come up with what council wanted the different committees to focus on. And for P&E, the land development code in the future, the current and future land use map, I believe that will probably carry over into the next fiscal year also.
Yeah.
But really trying to look at the big picture of our city, how all the committees work together to move us forward to a common goal. I think that's the direction that we're trying to get to with the committee process. So I think those two things are going to be on our P&E agendas for quite a while.
It sounds like land development code is a big undertaking, and it's on a bunch of different committees. Are we supposed to be looking at it like just from a P&E perspective, basically, like a long-term planning look at the city?
You guys are the foundation. You know, truly, the planning portion of it, you can't do anything without how wide are your streets, how big should the water lines be, what are the land uses, and then you plan for capital projects, and then you plan for parks and those things. But man, planning is step one.
Yeah. So it's going to be a joint effort between Public Works, Planning and Environmental, and Zoning are all involved in the Land Development Code. And it is a big undertaking. I don't think we've revised it since 09 or 10, somewhere in that. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
it's had some minor bites, but some minor bites have now put it in conflict in some sections as well. So
Okay.
a good portion of cleanup, but there's a good portion of policy and bigger picture in terms of, I know I hear a lot of folks talk about our trails and you know, sort of what do we want to be when we grow up? All of that is the planning component. We really can't do step one without that portion of it. So it is a big undertaking. And so when I was talking to the council at retreat last year, I was begging, please, please, please help me focus on that. Help me focus on that. Because we'll spin our wheels in budget. We'll spin our wheels in public safety, talking about signs or traffic lights or all of those things. When the real issue is that speed appropriate? Is that street width appropriate? Does it serve the neighborhood well? Long before we ever have a conversation about a stop sign or a traffic light.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then same thing with the current and future land use map. That's going to be something that we'll be looking at, and also the zoning commission is very involved in that.
Okay.
So yeah, our trails too, and as we start to get feedback from Ampersand about, you know, what do we want to promote about our city? You know, do we want to promote trails? What trails? Our urban trails, our green space trail, you know, all those things, like, and how do we want to promote people access them? And that ties back into Lone Oak and the trailhead over there that's not a trailhead. All those things we really need to take a look at in perspective of the bigger picture of our city.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvia's right, like, to do piecemeal spending, adding this or that without that bigger picture, you know, we'd just be spinning our wheels and wasting money, really.
So I was kind of wondering about that in the context of like the idea that came up in council of Homestead Park. Like I remember we kind of said, okay, let's talk about like a big plan for the city. So are we kind of like not backpedaling, but kind of stepping back to say, okay, let's really plan out the city? Like, is that kind of what current and future land use map is about?
Yes, and partially no. So
Okay.
The current land use map calls it as green space, right? And the future land use map will change that a little bit. We are nowhere near development for Homestead Park, nowhere near. The only thing we're doing is going to be a due diligence, because once the facts are on the table, then we have to step back and go, okay, those are the facts for that particular park. It's a floodway, it's a whatever.
Yeah.
Are we better served with that park or this park? And then we really have to talk about the parks master plan. Kieran and I were having a conversation one time about, really, are our streets, at the end of our streets, are those like the best access to parks, and how safe is that, and those kinds of things. And so all of that is parks master planning. But no, we're not going to put a shovel in Homestead anytime soon.
Right.
Anytime
Okay.
And it kind of goes to, you know, the way council works is council members can put, you know, really whatever they want on the agenda. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's gone through a committee or a bigger picture process.
Yeah.
So that ended up there. And I think we should look at it in context of all of our green spaces and parks and potential land use for all the city-owned property. I hope we can get to that big picture view before we put shovels in the dirt and spend more money.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Are there any plans for like zoning, public works, P&E? Since we're kind of jointly working on things together, are there any plans? I know before COVID, it seemed like we were moving toward like some joint meetings. Do you think that's going to happen, Karen? I don't know if anything's on the horizon.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was really pushing with the council, and in our retreat talked about actually scheduling some times each quarter where the committees could get together, at least the liaisons and the chairs, and whoever else could join, to really talk about what they're working on, where the intersects are, and how we could work together to move projects forward. And yeah, that got put on hold. We had a date scheduled, and then COVID hit and we didn't do that. We haven't set up any virtual meetings for that, but that's one of the things I'd like to see us do in 2021, because that's always been an issue, is having different committees working on different things and not working in synchronicity towards a common goal.
Right.
I really want to focus on that in this next year.
That's a nice idea. All right. Karen, do you think that covers it? Were there any other issues?
I think that it seems like a long time ago when we had the meeting. I think that about covers it. I think for the assignments for 2021, we should put the master parks plan on there too for planning environmental, but council will recommend that to council. And I don't know, Sylvia, can you think of anything, or Carolyn, that is relevant for this committee?
We're going to be talking a lot about impervious cover. The candidate questions that came in, there's 22 questions for each segment, 22 for mayor and 22 for council. And I believe there's 3 out of the 22 talking about impervious cover. And so that's an important topic. And one of the things that's important for everybody to realize is you can get to 18% and stay at 18% and just give credit or do alternate methods on site, but still stay at 18%. I think there's this misconception that you've got to go to 70 or you've got to go to, whatever. And that onus is never on the city. That onus is on the developer. They want to develop the property. They've got to figure out how to do it. So we need to stop taking that monkey in that circus and acting like, the world is going to shut down if we don't go to 75. There are very creative ways to do things and still be environmentally sensitive to where we are.
Mm-hmm. And that also ties back to our land development code and, updating it for new things that can be done, new ideas, new alternative ways to keep that environmental impact at a minimum. So all those things, I think, will come into play as we start really digging into that. It's going to be a big And then, I don't know, Sylvia, there was that note list of, in the budget, all of the things from the wish list that got moved over. I don't know if a final list was ever published.
No, we haven't. I have a draft of the final budget that's going to go on OpenGov to be done. Carolyn needs some polishing. I need to cut the chiefs down. He gave me like a dissertation, and I'm waiting for the mayor's cover letter, and then that's going to get published. I'm hoping that'll go live by Friday. It should have gone live October 1, but hopefully it'll go live on Friday with everything that the council adopted in an itemized way, so it's easy to find.
Okay, great. Thanks. That'll be helpful. And I think that was it, unless you guys have any other questions. Go vote.
Go vote.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, what's your question, Catherine?
I should know this. So when does our period of time on this committee end, and when would a new committee begin? Is it January? I can't remember.
Yeah, good question. So there's a new volunteer application, and is that up yet, Sylvia?
Yes, it should be up.
Okay. So it goes with our fiscal year. Well, actually, it goes until the first regular meeting after the general election. So that's when the appointments are supposed to be made. It got pushed last year, and I don't think appointments were actually made until January.
Yep.
That's
Um,
right.
But in the ordinance, council's supposed to make the appointments. So there's the election and then there's the swearing in. It's the meeting, the first regular meeting after the swearing in of the new council that the appointments are supposed to happen. And so we need to get everyone's volunteer application in if they want to serve in the coming year. So really, I guess, I don't know, last year it didn't happen till January. It was a little awkward.
Yeah.
Because, we hadn't made the assignments yet. And I don't know, Sylvia, do we have a deadline posted on when people should get their volunteer applications in?
I don't know. Matt just popped his head in. I meant to ask him that. No, I will. I'll text him and check with him. Last year was kind of quirky because of me, because I was trying to get my arms around things, and I think I'd had a conversation with Karen and one other person on the council and went, CED's touching this, but so is P&E. So, but they're not on the same page. Or, Public Works is touching this, but wait, Budget and Finance said they can't touch that. So there was a lot for me to grapple with and try to get my head around. And you guys saw it all year long, like, hey, wait, why is that committee working on that? Wait, what are you doing with that? Hey, wait, what? I'm really begging the council this year, please, 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 let's be clear to these committees. I hate for people to meet and not have accomplished anything. Please, 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 let's be clear, and then give them a work assignment and then let them be creative with that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the application, you should get your volunteer application in, I would say, probably by.
Let me check that. Let me check that.
Because then now it's going to be one application for each committee that you want to serve on, so Matt can separate them out. And then the new council members will have a chance to look at the applications, talk with, and figure out. The liaisons get appointed at that, they're supposed to get appointed at that meeting too, the first meeting after the swearing in meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And
actually, it's the wrong form. I'm going to upload the correct form right now.
okay. And is there a deadline on it? I don't think.
Last year's form said December 6th. I don't know what this one says. Hang on.
This one I don't think had a date on it. I'm looking at the draft and it just said, please return to Matt. It had Matt's name on here. I think we need to have it before December's meeting, because if the election's on the 3rd, then the swearing in would be on what date?
The 17th of November.
And then the first regular meeting after that would be
December 1st.
So you'd want to have them to everybody before December 1st, so they have a chance to talk to the people who want to be on committees.
So November 20th?
Yeah, I think that's probably good. What do you guys think?
That seems reasonable. I don't know how long it takes to vet everybody or like draft everybody. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. As long as I get everyone
draft.
Let's say,
pick me.
How about if we say by November 13th?
Okay.
Because that way it'll give the new council members a chance to look at all the applications, talk to the people that have served on the committee and figure out how they want to do. It was really awkward last year for me because as a new council member, I didn't know what the process was. And so people had signed up for 3 committees, but they could only serve on 2. And I just assigned everybody who asked to be on a committee on 2 committees, but some people only wanted to serve on 1. And so it's the more information a council member can have before they actually have to sit on the dais and make those appointments, I think the better it'll be for everybody.
Can I make a request? Sylvia, is the link to the like the volunteer form for people who want to serve on a committee, is that something that could be included in this next newsletter so that more residents would be aware of it? Everybody would have a way to like directly link to it, just to make it more accessible.
Sure.
Good idea.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I mean, I don't even know if I'm sure where I would go find it.
I'm putting, it's going to be under volunteer opportunities, resident volunteer opportunities.
Just on the main, like the homepage of the website or the, okay.
Yes, I'm going to put a hot link there too as well
Okay, thanks.
to let people get there pretty quick.
And I'm sure like each individual committee will send out a notice just reminding people on their committee if they want to reapply to do that.
That's a good idea.
He had a question mark on the due date. So
Okay.
we
Let's make
said
it
November
November
13th.
13th. Yeah. Yeah. Give people time and deal with the holidays before we have to come to a meeting and vote.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the P&E and just environmental updates?
Yep. Unless
Carolyn,
somebody has
you're
any
ready.
questions.
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay.
All right, so it's been pretty busy in Public Works, doing some erosion control projects in different areas of the city, as well as a lot of water activities. But the thing I wanted to point out to you guys and kind of show you guys what is called the Green Space Dashboard. I want to make sure you guys are seeing the right screen right now. So there's a link to it on the last Public Works report, and we've kind of had this map before with the city-owned green space. And then, but you can come over here if you click on these little links on the side.
Oh, cool.
Computer doesn't like that. You come up with a hold on.
Wow.
And it's got information about each one, and then you can click on the documents, and it'll actually bring up the documents as well.
Wow.
So there's the deed and all the information related to that green space. So here's the James Green Belt. Oops, that's not right. I'll fix that link. My computer apparently does not like Adobe stuff right now. But yeah, so here's the deed and the survey, and here's a property map. There's different pieces of it that you can kind of see the background documents as well.
Nice.
So if anybody has any questions about any of those, but so that, you know, here's the villas and everything around the villas and the different lots that were granted to the city, the covenants that actually go with the properties around the villas, all of that, and specifically they come down here and talk about the lots that belong to the city and what can be done in those as well. So yeah, that's pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty
That's
neat.
pretty much that.
We were kind of talking, so we had like a nature watch meeting where we were just discussing like the cemetery. Is that, what is the status of that in Sunset Valley? Is it owned by the city?
No, it's
Okay.
not. I'm trying to figure that out. I've tried to figure out who exactly owns it before. I need to do a little bit more research to try to find out who the cemetery belongs to, and who has the rights to that. So it's going to take a little bit more research. It's kind of like a no man's land in some ways, because you know, you ask the county and they say it's in the city's city limits, but according to our maps, it's not in our city limits, so it's very weird. So I got to do a little bit more research to try and find that property.
Cool.
The chief might have some information. The police department did a cleanup over there.
Yeah, I'll check with him, see if he had any contact with any owners or anybody like that.
That sounds good. Okay, Carolyn, did you have any other updates?
Nope, that's it for now.
All right. Okay, do we want to just move on to the wildlife plan? The wildfire plan, I mean?
Yes, so let me pull that up real quick. So I sent out another version of this afternoon with a lot of the comments that had come in, trying to get them all put in this one document. And I have figured that we can finish up if anybody had any additional comments to add on to it tonight. And then we can have more of a final draft kind of version at the next meeting.
Cool. Can you kind of talk about what some of the changes were? Just like, oh, and Lisa has a question about the hydrants specifically.
So I will say this, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the things I need to check regarding what Lisa just asked. I think this map was done prior to the looping of the line at the end of Pillow. So I think those fire hydrants should now have good fire flow in them. I'm pretty sure all of this happened before we did the looping of Lone Oak and Pillow together. So I'm going to double check it. Yeah, that map needs to be updated. So one of the things, go ahead.
I don't know if anyone had a comment. Maybe someone just got unmuted.
Yeah, so one of the things is we'll update this to represent non-2000, kind of 2011 in the past. We'll update those kind of references so it doesn't seem like it was, Bastrop Fire happened last week. And then
do we need to mute everyone or something?
I think that's Carolyn's feedback.
Oh.
That's weird because I'm on this phone.
No, it was actually Helen is in here twice, and I think one of hers was unmuted, but it's muted now. So I think it's good.
Oh, okay. Okay. So one of the things that I came across when I was looking at and comparing different versions, this goal number 3 was actually not part of the adopted thing, but it looks like it was something. Is this something that the committee wants to include? Because this is future development and redevelopment with the city to be more wildland, to be more fire resistant. And that was a discussion I think we had regarding impact fees, the fire hydrants, and things like that.
To me, that seems pretty important. Do you guys think that's a goal that we should have?
One of the comments I made, I think, might fall under that, and it was actually a question. We had talked about, I think there was a home on Oakdale that made us have a discussion about whether homes that were set really far back from the road that were newly built would be required to have sprinkler systems installed if the fire department couldn't adequately reach them. Was that something that we talked about, or is that a current?
That's a current requirement. So there are homes that, depending on their distance from the hydrants and things like that, they are required to have different fire sprinkler options, tanks, different things like that to make sure that their house can be protected. But that is currently what they have to do with the fire department.
And if they don't, that's in the current building code. If they don't have adequate fire flow, they need to provide that water flow. A home builder is also considered a developer, so they'd have to put a tank or something on there that would give them adequate fire pressure.
Okay, and I don't know if that even falls under this. What kind of things would fall under this goal if we kept it in there that might be required for development?
So in terms of the fire stuff, it's really just keeping our master plans updated. So if that's not really an issue with Sunset Valley in terms of flow and lines and things like that. I'd be more concerned with our green spaces and our education campaigns to make sure folks are trimming, folks aren't, you know, just putting it all out on the side of the road for long periods of time. Those kinds of things are areas where people park because your car could start a fire. I would be more, I'd be more say that's a better fit for Sunset Valley than, you know, us making sure that critical fire flow is there, because for the most part, we do have it. In other parts of the country, 6 inches, a 6-inch line is sufficient. Austin requires 8 inches, and Sunset Valley has been working hard to get to 8 inches. So they're not behind the curve on that one.
I would also say there's some other things that we could consider regarding landscaping and home ignition zones and things like that that could be part of that discussion on redevelopment as well. So let me go down. And this is something that I think Zoe pointed out, and Helen actually pointed out. So it talks about in here that the lead planning team was Public Safety Committee, but it's really, if you go down to the end of the document, it's going to be, there's Public Safety, there's Public Works, and P&E. So this will be updated to include all of that.
And Lisa has a question. What about driveway access to emergency vehicles as it pertains to saving trees? I don't know if that's something that's required for site plans.
That's an interesting question. So it just depends on the location. There are some areas, there are some homes that, I can think of one specifically on Oakdale that would have a very hard time having any kind of access to emergency vehicles. And I'm not just talking like a fire truck, I'm talking like an EMS truck. And this is not an answer, this is not this is a personal choice. It's not a, you know, that we're, you know, they can't remove any trees or canopy or something like that. It's not a code thing, but it is a personal choice. As far as for site plans, that's not something we've ever, I don't think anybody's ever gone out, and I don't think the fire department actually reviews that either. Maybe Sylvia has a different answer there, that if the tree canopies are raised or, you know, things like that for fire truck access to people's houses.
Yep, the fire department reviews that in their site plan review. The canopy is going to be up to the individual property owner to keep it clear. I will tell you, when the big fire truck gets to your house, the last thing they're worried about is saving the tree. Although it's important, right? They're there for probably an active fire that they're going to try to get to as close as possible, unless it is really set back from the house. They do carry some cutters on them. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to have the fire department trim, but that's not normally what they do. And seconds count. So if the trees are keeping them from getting there, you know, that's on the property owner. That's, you know, that's a hard balance.
And then so the next areas we have just updating some data and information to make sure it's all relevant to today's time. And then we go down. Yes, and so the Cougar Creek Greenbelt, we can definitely update that and include the villas. Those all areas are kind of adjacent to these different greenbelts that can be included in there. Let's see. There is a map, and I need to, Catherine asked about a map for planned or future pedestrian and vehicular access route if the primary routes are not available. I did attach, there is a map in there. I need to make a better copy of it that has those routes kind of lined out about where, you know, where there could be additional access in case the, you know, main access is cut off somehow. So So there has been discussion about that, specifically the end of Pillow to Lone Oak and in a couple other places to make that possible. So there is a map that will be in the final version that has some of that. In fact, I may be able to, it's down at the end, hold on.
Carolyn, can I ask a quick question? Helen's just having trouble like calling in. I don't think she can hear us. The number on the agenda should work for everyone, right? Are you good,
Yes,
Helen?
it should. Hold on. I can mute her now. Helen, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I can't talk. Am I talking?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
You can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you.
So you're good?
Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So that we'll have that map included there. There is a question down here. So local code requires new construction to a standard of 50% masonry. Legislative changes has made it where we can't really mandate different types of building materials. So that will have to change.
Okay.
And then we will update the hydrant map because, like I said, I think the yellow fire hydrants on here that were underflowing, I think that was taken care of with the loop that was done a few years back.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that it may need additional, part of some of this planning for some of the future roads, specifically like Lone Oak and Sunset Trail, is possible new fire hydrants being installed in those areas. Because if you look at Sunset Trail, there is only one City of Sunset Valley hydrant on the road. There is one up at the end toward City of Austin. But yeah, that doesn't mean that new fire hydrants wouldn't be beneficial in these areas. Going down. So there were some questions about what has been done. So we can just start at the South Hills Conservation Area. We've done that. We've done the shaded fire break in that area, and we've maintained that pretty well. It's we have all of that done in the South Hills Sunset Valley Nature Area. Similarly, that we do have some of the shaded fire breaks and different fire breaks in those areas done. This one is up for some work to be done on it this year just to maintain it. Cougar Creek Greenbelt. There was a question about why there's not a fire break here, but this is mostly the other areas have a lot of trees and other larger vegetation. Cougar Creek mainly, especially on the edges of the property, is mostly grasslands. And so we do, instead of like a fire break mowing area, we basically mow that area a couple times a year just to keep the grasses low. Indian grass, it does have access into big parts of it, and then it will be part of the Violet Crown Trail, and that actually will increase accessibility in a lot of ways as well. There was a question about working in conjunction. We work with the City of Austin in this area a lot. We have not really reached out to the apartment complex in the last couple of years, and that's something that we can do. Gaines Greenbelt is a different thing because Gaines Greenbelt is endangered species habitat, so we can't change a lot of what's going on in the Greenbelt as far as, you know, it has a lot of juniper and stuff like that, but that's part of the critical habitat for that species. So that one recommendation is to talk more and have more educational focus and more defensible space regarding the properties that are not within the Greenbelt area. Catherine had a question about how will property owners be encouraged to have their property assessed for wildfire risk. That's a great question. We've done in the past, had like individual property assessments, and there's some of us who've been trained to do that for individuals. And that could be something that could be, we could look at doing again, and the different types of outreach. generally what we've done this year, what we did was at open house, we did have the Wildland Firefighting Division come in, and they were there to answer questions and talk to people about defensible space and things like that around their homes, and the urban wildland interface. And so we did have a little bit of education going on at open house regarding that. And usually we would also have the same thing at National Night Out, but since National Night Out didn't happen this year, that it would just be at open house.
And I think that it was through one of the open houses shortly after we moved here that we had somebody. It was not someone from the city. I think it was someone from one of the groups at the open house who came and did an assessment with us on our property and gave us advice on, trim these away from the roof and that kind of stuff. And was there a group that would come to the open house that was outside of the city?
It might have been the Westlake Fire Department, Catherine.
No, it wasn't. It was the TechSARS group. It was a search and rescue group that kind of was out, that was part of the city. Part of the city. They kind of met here. They kind of did other stuff and were part of like the city's search and rescue kind of arm. But it was all volunteers. They weren't staff or anything like that. And them and I and a couple other people may have gone through all the same training class at the same time for the home ignition zone training. And they would be the ones who had come out and did the assessment. One of them would have been the one who came out and did the assessment.
But that's not available anymore for residents?
No, I haven't seen TechSARS around anymore. I don't know what happened, if they're active anymore. I can double check on that. But I'm sure we could probably reach out and see if AFD should probably have somebody who does that now, and we should be able to see if they can do that.
And Bruce, our neighbor Bruce here on Pillow was involved with that very heavily. And I think they are
He went through the class.
Right. There's still some CERT volunteers. So, that's something they probably could do too. I don't know if TechSAR's still going, but CERT volunteers certainly are still trained and qualified.
I guess this
and I can check.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
This came up under a bigger umbrella thought that I had about this document was, how do we have things in place to be sure that whatever's in here is consistently happening within our city, especially since they haven't been reviewed in a while. So something like if every year at open house there was always a booth about education for your home, just like something put in place so that everybody's not having to hold in their memory like how we're going to do it each year and it changes. It would, I'm sure, make your life easier, Carolyn.
Yeah, and actually I think I'm trying to go down a little further. I think Zoe had an idea about making like the goals and objectives and like almost a separate section and having a column where you could actually like put in the dates that these happen and when it needs to be revisited. So making it more of a living document, and kind of filling it in as we go along and making sure that we hit those milestones.
Yep, good idea.
Like I really appreciated having the chance to review this and make comments on it and be thoughtful about it. And part of it is like, well, I'm not an expert on any of this, and I don't know if any of this has been done or what needs to be revisited. So like just like prompting someone, like it seems like maybe that's a good use of this committee to review it like every couple of years or something.
It might be nice to also have resident resource button or section on our website too, where we could put all these things. How do you do this? How do you get your property assessed for FireWise? And
and I don't know if there's like a FireWise component to the land development code. I'm assuming there's stuff throughout that as we're looking at the land development code, we'll be looking at pieces of aspects of this too.
Yeah, there's definitely some pieces of the land development code where FireWise and things like that would be playing a role in there. So I think it's going to be definitely a group thing, and I like the idea of having it kind of being a living document.
You know, it's been so long
Please
since we
come to-
reviewed a lot of our major documents. It probably would be a good idea to have a regular schedule for the committees that deal in those documents, that like once a year, once every other year, that there's just an automatic update review. Let's see if we're on track. You know, how do we know we're actually accomplishing what we said we wanted to, and that we're keeping up with current things?
That makes sense to me too. Like, especially when you have goals and it's something you have to keep up with.
Yeah, need some measurements in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Lisa's making some comments in the chat, like about Westlake Fire Department also having a lot of resources, and the fact that we can count on a fire happening. It's just a matter of when and how prepared we are. And also, like, safety committee should be looking at this too and offering suggestions. And Helen was saying that, I think it was Helen was saying that anyone who comes to look at a house with a realtor should be given a FireWise document. Like, I guess is outreach. Those are good ideas too.
I don't know if it's already in here. I can't remember, but if it were a requirement that this document be reviewed, say once a year, the reviews would certainly be shorter if it were a living document with, you know, continuous updates, because we wouldn't have to go back on so many items and try to remember if or when they happened. But I cannot remember if there's a requirement actually written in this document already about how often it should be reviewed. I think there was one.
I think
Yeah, it has it at every 2 years. But what may be handy though is if you did do something like that at the basically at the October meeting, because and during October is when we would be getting everything ready to submit for FireWise status. So making sure, you know, maybe having a brief kind of review of what's happened, what goals we have, and then we're kind of updating it as we go along annually, because we have to apply annually.
Who do we apply to? Like, is FireWise like an organization?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, let me go back up and see what we've missed.
Helen was asking to be unmuted. I don't know. She's muted?
Oh, I don't know how that happened.
Thank you. It's because I talk too much.
So we will update.
That's where the feedback's coming from.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, we are getting feedback. We'll update the contract information and update the locations that we need to. And I think coordinating with Austin and Cherry Creek neighborhood, I think that is an excellent point, because the reality is that more than likely, if a fire happens, it's going to be coming from the residential areas into the green spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, working with those neighboring organizations, them and Barton View, would be ideal. I would say Zoe, you had a question, the Ready, Set, Go Wildfire Preparedness for Homeowners Workshop.
Yeah.
I would bet that was last done in 2011 or 2012.
That's kind of what I was assuming.
Yeah.
Like, it does seem like it'd be really valuable to have someone do outreach or assess your home or something, to have that more available. It'd be cool to find resources on that.
Austin Fire Department may already have a program like that. We probably should check.
Yeah, no, I would check. They actually, strangely enough, the guy who used to do it for Texas Forest Service, I think now works for the city of Austin. So we can definitely outreach and check with them and see what they're doing for that. And that's kind of like what we do with the open house and things like that, trying to do that. But we can make it more personal and having the actual workshop. Yes, and this is where I just went through and talked about that. Yes, it's been created. We do need to do more outreach with the apartments and the neighborhoods. The nature area, brush route is done.
I just had a peek. I just did a quick Google search, and the Austin Fire Department, you can request a free smoke alarm, and when they come install it, they'll do a free home hazard assessment, and they also have a home hazard checklist that you can just print and do the assessment yourself.
I think that's for the interior of the house.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, it looks like on this list it's all interior things mostly.
Also, I was listening to everyone talk about the different things we could do, but some of them seemed like they needed money, and we don't have any budget for anything, and I'll mute myself again.
Thanks, Helen. Sorry about the feedback.
Well, I think as we move forward, if there's things that do need funding, that we put those together in some kind of proposal.
Okay.
Because even though we passed the budget, there's still budget amendments that could happen if it's something critical.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I just wanted to bring up that right now there's no budget for things.
Going through the comments finally, this is where I have Zoe's comment about putting the goals and objectives. And that's kind of, Catherine also echoed that comment there. And we also kind of talked about and hit on the annual review and having more reviews and having like a schedule of the various documents in the city that need to have, reviews and not just be left to languish out in the ether. Did anybody else have any other comments?
Carolyn, you saw mine right, because I missed most of the review trying to get on. So mine were mostly in the document. So I don't need to try to go find them. They're covered, right?
Hold on just a sec. Helen, did you send me a document today?
Yeah, I did. I did it right after you and I spoke, and I had lots and lots of comments and sent it back to you with the comments like Catherine and Zoe. I still have it, but I'm afraid to open up my other computer.
Yeah, I'm not. Did you send it? Is it a Google Doc that you sent me?
Helen, you're muted.
Sorry, I sent back whatever you sent me, and it had all the comments in it. I might have erred in getting it back to you, but it should be Google Docs. Yeah. Zoe, did you see it?
I thought I saw it. Let me, if I see it, I'll forward it. Let me check.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I got one and it just says done, and you talk about something, but I don't have anything. It didn't have a document attached.
Oh,
Oops.
But I can add yours on as soon as I get it.
yeah, I don't see document. Sorry, I saw your email, Helen, but yeah, I don't have an attachment.
So, okay, I thought I sent it back. I'm not sure I can access it. Well, I'll try. Let me see if I can find. So you want me to send it back to you, Carolyn?
Yeah, if you can send it back to me, I can add it in. I just don't see it. Like I said, there it just said done, and then you talk about some of it, but you don't. So there's nothing attached.
Right. I assumed that because it was in Google Docs, you could just go to it. Wrong. Huh?
I think we can, Carolyn, you can get Helen's comments and then add those, and then it'll come back for another look-see to this committee, right?
Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll have a more finalized document at the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I need a tutorial in all this.
Okay, we'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Thank you.
Was this a Google Doc?
Is it? I don't think so.
No, this is not a Google Doc, but I can make it a Google Doc.
Well, Helen mentioned that, so I didn't know if she might have made notes on a different version, perhaps, or
That's what I was.
maybe that's what my anyway.
Notes on the one that I made notes on the one that Carolyn sent, and Zoe and Catherine had already commented on it. So, and then I added all my comments
Okay.
to it. I'll look for it again.
All right.
So
are we ready to move?
We'll bring this. Yeah, this will come back at the next meeting and to kind of finalize and hopefully get it more up to date with what we need to be doing now.
So are we expecting to have one more meeting in November as this committee? And then it sounds like in December, it would be like the new committee, like whoever applies. Is that right?
That would be up to the committee if they want to have, if we can, I mean, definitely have another meeting in November.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I think we would have a new seated committee following that.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be good to have one in November, look at these final comments with Helen's added, and then that way we're ready to pass it on to the next committee for their new seating.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm assuming I missed everything on our Nature Watch, so we
haven't
need to
talked
read.
about Nature Watch.
You haven't talked about that yet?
No,
Okay,
this is the one
All right.
before.
Okay, all right.
That's next.
Ooh.
Sunset Valley Nature Watch.
All right. Catherine, you want to talk or you want me to talk? Like either way. Like we've had some planning meetings about Nature Watch. And then Carolyn, I was just wondering if you could like pull up the map from the, what was that, Conservation Rangers? So somewhere in this presentation, there's the map with like the different areas that have been delineated. And I mean, I think we just kind of took a cue from like neighborhood watches and thought we would divide up conservation areas into like basically different coordinators. So there are these 5 areas and we were trying to get coordinators for each area. Catherine, can you like go down the list? I know you know who they are.
Yeah. So we have identified volunteer coordinators for all of these areas except for the Sunset Valley Nature area. That's the last one that we don't have a definite volunteer coordinator for. Basically, we're just trying to have one person who will help coordinate anybody who'd like to volunteer in those spaces with some different projects. Once we have identified a volunteer coordinator for the Sunset Valley Nature area, we should be able to have a meeting. We're hoping this month And we've discussed as a first project, just trying to get some volunteers out to do a very basic litter cleanup in each of these areas so that we can all become familiar with them if we're not. And then as we can move forward, and especially as we can be around a bigger group of people, take on some other tasks that we can work with Carolyn in identifying what would be most beneficial to each of those areas, since they do have different needs. And it sounded like through some emails that Sylvia and Carolyn and I were having that we might need to put together a presentation for the next council meeting. Karen had said she would sponsor the item. I originally had asked Sylvia if we would be able to do a call for volunteers for this project in the newsletter. But, and Sylvia, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but it sounded like we needed to get approval from council before that call for volunteers could go into the newsletter. And so it is still possible. The next council meeting was the 20th. The newsletter goes out the 23rd, I think.
Yes, yes.
Is that right?
Yes. And it's really a presentation. I had a, and I want to, maybe it was CED committee, I'm not sure. There was a sort of a welcome back, encouraging, local shopping. And I, naively posted it in the newsletter and didn't go over well because of COVID. I mean, there was, anyway, so it's not necessarily for permission, but I definitely would like Karen to sponsor it, to give an FYI that this is, this is what's happening, and it's completely resident driven and or committee driven, volunteer driven, and you're not really asking for anything from the staff other than the mention in the newsletter, an in kind, so to speak.
Like occasional supplies, right?
Yeah. Oh, the stories I could tell, but
Yeah. So perhaps we take this presentation and kind of update it, take some sections and maps out of this, and then just some, how's it going to work? Who's going to, coordinator for each of these sections? It's going to be volunteer driven. I'm going to start with a litter cleanup campaign. The council knows what's coming up, and they're not surprised.
And if they want to participate, or they themselves may want to contribute or whatever. Have we ever had volunteers sign a hold harmless?
We probably did for conservation rangers.
There may have been something. Go ahead, Helen.
I was just asking Sylvia to ask that again. I lost the last
have we ever asked our volunteers to sign like a hold harmless agreement that says, if they trip and fall, they won't hold the city responsible?
I think we did early on. I'm not real sure, because that is a concern of mine, that we want to make sure we protect the city.
Yeah, that would be my one request to this. I love that it's volunteer driven. We were doing beach cleanup one day and somebody stepped on a rusty nail, and as is possible when people are burning bonfires and things, people don't think about when they take their pallets and things. Anyway, this person was like, oh, it's great. No problem. And went home. Well, I got a bill. The city got a bill for the ER visit, tetanus shot, and some suffering. So.
Yeah, I think, Sylvia, aren't we going to have to also have one for the neighborhood watch, especially if the chief has people painting over graffiti? So we should have a standard one for the city.
I think we should have a standard one too. Yeah, and then we can probably sign it with any volunteer form. So if, let's say, this committee ever wants to join as a committee and go do a cleanup on a meeting night instead of having a meeting, you're already covered.
Okay.
Is that a document that's fairly simple to put together, where we might have it by, we were thinking November kind of 7th through 14th to do a letter?
Sure. It's a standard, it's pretty standard language among cities.
Okay, cool. So who needs to be involved in updating this presentation? And Karen, would you be the person presenting it to council?
Whatever Sylvia tells me will be the best method is what I will do.
Well, I think it would be good as a quick presentation. I mean, we could do it as a report. It's easy either way. I don't, things get to be very complicated when we put it as an action item.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, it should be maybe part of Carolyn's report, and then I can work with Carolyn and we can do the presentation rather than trying to get it on the agenda as an action item.
Yeah,
I'm totally okay with that.
Okay.
Carolyn,
Yeah, we can put it in the report.
Yeah,
If it's in
Carolyn
a
did
report,
bring this up before at a council meeting.
I know.
But
Can
no,
we move forward if it's not an agenda item? Because it doesn't the council need to approve it? I mean, if we make a presentation and they say, yeah, okay, which is what Carolyn did a while back. She made a brief presentation and the council there was no comment. So that's why we took it upon ourselves to move forward. But if we don't have some action up from the council saying, yeah, we blessed this, then we're kind of right back where we started from, it seems. Like the liability issue and offering other people outside our city, because I want to include some of the other neighborhoods that are around us. I've already talked to people out there and they really, really are enthusiastic, especially the South Hills and over in the Indian Grass Prairie. So it wouldn't be just limited to residents, kind of like the Austin Parks Foundation does. It's just whoever wants to come help. So it seems like we need more direction from the council before we move forward. Or, as I said, we're just doing the same thing over and over again.
yeah, I mean, because like I agree with Helen. Didn't we already kind of do, or Carolyn, did you already bring it up? Like I thought we had kind of implied consent because they didn't say no.
Yeah, we did present it at a council meeting as part of a report not too long ago, and there wasn't any like questions or anything like that came up.
But we didn't present any details, did we, Carolyn? We just said we're revising this conservation rangers into the Nature Watch.
Yeah.
How full?
That's yeah, it was pretty much just that we are making it into changing the name, and that there are some residents working on getting some volunteer coordinators for each of the areas. I think it's pretty much what we presented.
So yeah, we need to bring the details back. I think you're right, Helen. I don't know how full the agenda schedule is, Sylvia. But I just don't want it to get bumped. I'll have to put it on the mayor's agenda if we want to do it that way.
Yeah, I'm actually working on the agenda right now. We have potentially 3 variances and my evaluation. So, and Sustainable Food Center.
Oh.
Oy.
Can we do it as a more detailed report? I was in attendance at the meeting when Carolyn presented it, and yeah, nobody said anything, but it was also just a brief bit of information. So can we present as a report, but in the report say, we need to know if further action is required before we start and see if anyone speaks up? Or is that not the right way to go about it?
What if we put it together more like kind of like almost like a CARS item or something like that, like more detailed information with a report, and so that it's kind of laid out what it is the group is planning to do, and also say they're planning to do a litter pickup on whatever day that It's My Park Day is, and kind of just put it out in more detail in the report.
Well, you can do that independent, like you can do that tomorrow if you'd like as an FYI, and then that way you can field any questions that you need to. So when it does go to council, we're not doing that on the dais and trying to bounce off. So if you want to inform them as soon as possible this week, that's perfectly acceptable in sort of a CARS report.
So then would we need to then have council direction requested as part of the Carolyn's report?
Yes. So if we did like when I do the council information report or CARS report, I do the background. I give a little bit of summary of what staff work is done, and then I say direction from the council or direction sought or input sought or something like that. And you can put on there to be presented at a future council meeting, which will probably be the 17th.
Of what, November?
November, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not going to get the timeline that you want to get to, right?
Yeah.
Not optimally.
Because the meeting for the 20th, is pretty full.
Is there any problem with our having our coordinator meeting soon? And is there any problem with announcing that it's happening, but we don't have approval yet? And is it okay to start inviting people? Because I know we've talked about this, Catherine and Zoe and me, and we could drag this thing out until next spring if we keep doing this step by step. So we could do all of these things, get the interested persons, have a coordinator meeting, et cetera, and if the council says, no, we don't like that, then we can just reboot and start with what they do want. But at least we'll have our group together, and I can't imagine they're going to object to the coordinator plan that we have. So
yeah,
we can keep doing
I think that's fine, and I think the more detail that you bring back to the council, the better. So if by the time you come to the council, you've said, we've already met, we have coordinators, we have this organized group, and we're ready. I don't think there's a problem with that. Just at the onset, just saying it hasn't been approved just yet. We're getting all the logistics together.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good. I mean, just me, if that's okay with the rest of the committee.
I like the idea of having the CARS report go out to council so they have all that information ahead of time. And then it can be on Carolyn's, well, the CARS report can ask for direction from council. And if they want to say, great, move forward, or bring it back as an action item, then we're ready. Because they could do either, right, Sylvia? We could say, this looks good. I've read it all.
Yep. Consent. Consent.
Yes.
I think it would be
Okay,
helpful to
so let me make sure I got this right. We're going to do a report that goes out saying, hey, this is what the residents have been working on for Sunset Valley Nature Watch. We'll kind of send that out right away. Then we'll have a report basically at the next council meeting, kind of it all attached. And then council can say, yes, bring it back as an item, or say, you know, okay. And that's kind of the plan then.
And in the interim, we'll be getting resident volunteers to step up, we hope, and we'll have talked to our coordinators, so we'll have more information to give to the council, and they can show how much resident support there is for it, which might help in their decision. And we won't ask for any money. So Carolyn, when you start out, make sure that there's no money involved. The liability issue, I think, is key though. So and I don't know who needs to work on that, but we need to come up with something so that if we do have residents who volunteer or say they're interested, we need to make sure that they know that there is some form that they're going to have to fill out about liability.
Yeah, we can discuss that in our coordinator meeting so everybody knows that anyone who works with them in an area needs to make sure to have signed something before they begin. I was hoping to ask all the committee members just to take a peek at this map, and if you can see where that Sunset Valley Nature Area is, if you're not familiar with it. If you know any residents who live near that area who might be interested in being a volunteer coordinator.
Elsa, excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Elsa Kearney was interested. We contacted her. She actually was on the meeting a little while ago. I could see her, but I couldn't talk. So
she signed off.
She was listening to us because she's interested in being a coordinator for that area. And but now we've lost her. So maybe Carolyn and I can contact her again and, well, see if she's still interested and at least come to our coordinator meeting.
Yeah. I guess just if any of our committee members know of somebody else who might be interested in case she's not, or know of people who might like to volunteer. I'm collecting volunteer names right now to help us get ready when we do have something to do. So send it my way if you have any ideas or people who you know that might be interested in this.
And Sylvia, can we have Roxy pull together that waiver for the city?
Yes, I'm gonna send her, sort of the generic one and have her fix it for Sunset Valley.
Okay.
So what do we need to do to support Carolyn? And what you guys are calling it, like a CARS report? Is that right? What does that stand for?
Council action requests something or other.
Okay. So when is that due by, and when do we need to have something prepared by?
Those can go out at any point. I mean, ideally in the packet, but they can go out at any point.
Okay.
So if we have a presentation ready with all the information before the packets go out, great. If not, we can put it in the packet.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying, Sylvia?
I keep muting myself for some, yes.
Okay.
And the packet would be going out this week, so it would be Thursday or so.
Okay.
That might just be our target.
I mean, we don't need to say very much, right? We just need to add a few slides kind of saying our intent, and basically we're not asking for money. Everyone's going to sign a waiver. Like, this is what we want to do. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be very complex or elaborate.
I think the map with some bullet points,
Yeah. Okay.
Keep it simple, but answer some of the questions the council might have about, yes, everybody will sign a waiver. Yes, we're going to recruit volunteers. Our first goal is to do a litter cleanup in these areas.
All right.
Yeah, and I think we can include some details how the, litter cleanup will be, COVID friendly basically, and that everybody will be socially distanced and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. And then Elsa was on the call. I'm sorry, y'all. Elsa was on the call, but she couldn't hear anything. I sent her the phone number with the access code, and she said it didn't work. And Helen, you had that experience too, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So I don't know if there's a problem with the access code. I just thought I'd bring it up. Elsa, she dropped off because she couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll contact her tomorrow if I can. I'll try to contact her.
Yeah.
But Catherine, do you have time to write something up of all the things we just said? Because I don't know if Carolyn has time, but you're so good at writing and you've already got that basic announcement that you have written.
Yeah, and Carolyn, if it works best for you, I can just take another look through this presentation that we're all looking at right now and maybe suggest like an additional slide or two if it would be easy enough to just use your current format, add in a couple pages with details. What's best for you?
Yeah, we can do that. And I think you should have a link and everything to this presentation from the July 27th meeting. If not, I can try to send it to you again. But yeah, you can definitely do that and we can go from there.
Okay. I'll find time to do that tomorrow for sure so that you can have it ready.
Okay. Thank you.
I can help. Just let me know what you need. It doesn't sound like we have to add very much.
No, I mean, Carolyn's done so much of the work already with this presentation that I think it'll be easy. I do think that this raises the issue of anytime residents want to volunteer in the city, it would be good to have a clear path to know exactly what approval is required. So I think, knowing that we need to sign a waiver is a pretty obvious one, but does every volunteer thing need to be approved by council or just presented to council? It would be helpful to get feedback on that. And of course, things are going to change. And
that's a really good question, Catherine, because I was just thinking we revised the volunteer application, but that only applies to service on committees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good question. Maybe we need a volunteer application or form for, like the neighborhood watch volunteers and nature watch volunteers. So we have a record
Yeah,
of
that's it.
volunteering.
I
That's
think
a good point, because we also have a lot of like scout groups and different organizations who volunteered in the city and did different projects.
yeah, and I know we don't like to use a lot of paper, but in other places where I have volunteered for things, not only do you volunteer, I mean, sign the waiver before, like months before, but when you actually go to an event, they have you sign it right there in front of them at the event. So they have that piece of paper in their hand, and they can't come back later and say, well, whatever, I was there and something happened. So that may be something we want to talk about too, even though it's more paperwork.
Well, I think we can have a form online too, that we made the new volunteer for committees application fillable. So we could reduce paper.
Yeah, but for each event, we could just, if you sign up for an event, you could just have one piece of paper on a clipboard that has all the names of the people that are volunteered to show up, plus some lines for people who just show up without volunteering first online, and then just have them read the form and sign something.
Mhm.
I would feel safer if we did something like that, just because you could pick up a piece of glass and cut yourself. And I know there's one area that we probably don't want people to go to, but over in the Indian Grass Prairie, there's where the homeless camp used to be. You can't walk 2 feet without seeing a hypodermic needle. And I'd love to get those out of there, but I don't think it's the kind of thing we want to have a bunch of kids running around picking up needles.
Yeah.
See, that scares me right there.
It's in the city of Austin,
Oh,
the homeless camp.
yeah.
It's true. It's the city of Austin, but there's some of us who want to clean it up anyway, including Joe.
No, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And they're going to be helping us. I don't think that was I can't remember his name, Carolyn, the young man with the Austin Parks Foundation. You know, they were talking about
Barry?
Barry. They were talking about working with us. It's not that we wouldn't be dependent on Sunset Valley volunteers.
Maybe they have a volunteer form we can rip off.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, are we ready to move on to the planning part? Is there anything else we have to discuss? Okay. I guess let's look at our schedule.
So it looks like we'll have one final meeting then before we have a new seated committee possibly in December. So at the next meeting, we'll definitely be finishing up community wildfire. But I didn't know so we do have the council assignments. So this committee was given the assignments of land development code, future land map, and specifically the sign code was sent to this committee as that was one of the changes at the council meeting. I don't know if there's only one meeting before the new committee is seated, if there's anything we want to look at the next meeting, or if it's just wrapping up these items and then kicking that off in December.
I mean, it sounds like that would be the better choice, just wrapping up open stuff and not really starting anything new, especially that requires back and forth.
It might be a good idea, Carolyn, if you and Sylvia can just kind of list out the sections of the land development code and the sections that you're wanting this committee's input on, so that at least we can get that like up on a list. Here's what's going to move forward.
Okay, yeah, okay, so maybe that would be like the agenda item at the next meeting would be a look at, what it may also, impact whether people want to be on the committee or not. What the committee is going to be looking at over the next year, basically, where we're going.
Yeah, and like the whole land development code might be overwhelming, but there's sections for this committee, right?
Yeah, no, and there's some sections that are, of the land development code that are fairly new, that have already been updated. But, specifically, I think as Sylvia mentioned, the chapter 4 watershed, that's going to be a big one that needs to be, that really needs to be updated. We've talked about it in the committee for a number of years, as looking at it from a redevelopment perspective also. So I would say, and what new technologies are out there to kind of, address that. So there's a lot of different parts of that chapter. And like I said, since the sign code was specifically sent here, having some of that in as well. What does the city look like with signage would be another kind of thing to discuss.
Yeah, I think getting our minds wrapped around what that looks like and what sections what specifically we'll have to look at moving forward can help, people decide if they want to jump in or not. That'd be good.
I think it's great that we look at the land code and everything, but I'm just wondering, like, are there opportunities for subject matter experts to look at the codes? I mean, besides city staff, like, because I don't know anything about the watershed at all, and I don't have any idea about new technology and.
Yes, definitely. We would definitely have to have some subject matter experts on some of these.
Okay, I just don't know what the process is for that, because, like, I can only give like grammar comments and like consistency. I don't know about like the underpinning technology and science and.
Well, so what we're going to be looking for is not necessarily subject matter stuff. I mean, that is for the technical folks. I'm going to be looking for more policy help. I'm going to be looking at where, again, what does the city want to be when it grows up, or as it matures, or those kinds of things. And once you guys give policy direction, then we begin crafting.
Okay.
Yeah, that is technical ease, especially left to the attorneys and the planners.
Great.
So I think some context around that would be helpful as we state the work for next year.
For sure.
Sylvia, does
Yes.
the land development code handle zoning? I know you and I are in agreement that we really need to look at zoning. And P&E, I keep reminding people, P stands for planning. We're just not the nature areas. And we just actually had input on the zoning regulations, our suggestions for, and I'll just use neighborhood office for an example. I don't think that's been looked at in 20 years, and things have changed incredibly since then in terms of how you can put in offices aesthetically and look nice. And I think we should just say, okay, it can't be over 30 feet high and it has to be blah, blah, blah. And it's just like your basic office was 25, 30 years ago. I would love for us to tackle that. Zoning and maybe neighborhood commercial. Well, actually, we probably should look at all of it, but we used to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really critical. That's one thing I'd like to see us keep working on. And the second thing is, I couldn't talk when you were planning out what to do for the rest of 2020, but I think the Nature Watch ought to be at least part of that, because we're starting it actually, so we might as well put it on the list.
So I have a question on that. So kind of linking back, I'm not on Nature Watch, I added that to the list here. But are we really looking at so much land development code or more comprehensive master plan?
We have to look at both. You can't do one without the other. So from a comprehensive plan, like current land use and future land use, so we would leave that super generic office, neighborhood office. But we do have to drill down into the details, because we need to then determine, all right, is the road width appropriate for that? Is there more pedestrian space needed for that? What do we want those setbacks to be? I mean, so the devil is in the details, but it definitely starts at a 50,000 foot level. And that's where everybody's hands are in it. But for me, the thing that's missing in our zoning code and our land uses is the preambles that tell me what the intent is. Those need to be revisited, right? Because I don't know what the intent is anymore. Some of those haven't been revisited in 20 years, as Helen stated. And so a preamble that said the intent of this code or this section of the code is to do this. And then that's where we frame things. And absent that, it's just words that oftentimes are in conflict with one another. And I always go back to, well, what did we intend when we wrote that section? Those are the policy discussions.
Yeah. That sounds good.
I'm sorry, that stuff excites me. That's my like.
Since I've been at the committee, we haven't really done any planning, so I think it's exciting.
I'm gonna
But
get
it's
you guys so excited. You're gonna like. My last police chief could then talk to you about impact fees by the time I left my city. That's how excited you guys are gonna be.
it's gonna be awesome.
Planning is actually a lot of fun, Zoe.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
mean, I'm looking forward
It
to
really
it.
is fun. I mean, you're really creating what you want Sunset Valley to be, and
Yeah.
it needs to come from our level and
Yeah.
up to the council, or from the residents, us to the council. So this is really, really important.
It is Sim City in real life.
I know at work, whenever I get puzzled on something, someone's like, you need to check the preamble. Go look at the preamble. They address it there. So it does come up a lot.
Yep. The big question to answer, why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything starts there. I loved when Ampersand said that. It's like, they're talking my language.
I liked their presentation a lot. I'm excited to hear what they come up with.
We're
My
meeting on the 22nd on that note. Council
Wait,
doesn't.
What?
I said, Karen, y'all don't know it yet, but we have homework that's due, and so we're meeting again on the 22nd.
I'm waiting to get it so I can do it. I'm anxious. Send it to me.
My question about all this, and of course we'll address this way later, but how do we as committee members also hear what residents want?
Mm-hmm.
So as we start to tackle, like, I'll just use Helen's example, neighborhood office, for example, as we start to tackle, so we'll have the current version, and then we'll have the legislative version of strikeouts and additions of what the rest of the country's doing, what our Central Texas counterparts are doing, and what our local, literally right in Austin, is doing. So we'll have some of that discussion. Some of it is not going to be appropriate for us. But some of it might be, like the residents who live closer to Westgate, they're now familiar. Austin's comprehensive planning now requires essentially creating neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations that have to approve. If, Catherine, you want to add a shed to your backyard and you need a variance, you have to get approval from your neighborhood group, so to speak, before. Some of that's not going to be appropriate for Sunset Valley, but we do have to put it out to the residents. That might be important to some people, getting notice for variances that we don't do right now. It's not required for us to give notice for a variance, but it might be really important for you to know if somebody wants to put, 10,000 square foot barn or shed or whatever in their backyard. I mean, I'm just making up numbers, but those are some of the things that'll have input, and it'll have to be as we go along, and we'll have to open a survey or a public comment period. That is the thing about the planning piece of this. It is, as Helen stated, really, really resident driven. So it does require a lot of resident input.
Great.
Okay.
That's exciting.
That's a good question.
Carolyn, I'm totally off topic now. Are you able to send me this presentation? I looked back through my emails and I just have it as part of the agenda, but it's not something that I can open. And could you send me a copy that I could make changes to?
Yeah, I can do that real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, I don't know if we've do we need, when we were talking about planning, I was thinking we were going to look at the calendar and stuff, but it sounds like we really have our agenda for the November meeting. Do you think we need to do that? Or do you think as long as nobody has any more input, we're ready to adjourn? And that's something we do with the new committee.
Yeah, I think that's something we do with the new committee, kind of looking out and planning ahead. I think, at this point, we're really going to have just one more meeting, and hopefully, hope all you guys are back on the committee and want to join again. But I think we kind of plan that out and start in December with the next group of people who are part of the committee.
All right. Lisa, did you have something you wanted to add? I thought I saw you raising your hand. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or not. just type if you want to say anything. And then Sylvia and Carolyn, I don't know if you heard my comment about Elsa about how she couldn't use the access code to access the meeting. I don't know if anyone else has complained about like that kind of issue. Since Helen was having the same problem, I just thought maybe it's important we look at it.
Okay, thank you. When I dialed in, you guys sounded very far away.
Huh, okay.
And when I tried to, well, I could get on, obviously, but I couldn't get my audio to work. And it kept saying I was disconnected, and I did all the things on the computer, and my speakers have worked fine on both. It was both computers, and they've been working fine today. So, so something about your speakers aren't working. You're not connected somehow. I wasn't connected.
Something's up with GoTo.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kicked me out all the way. I had to go all the way back to the website to get in.
Yeah, I saw you disappear. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, to shut
Yeah,
down.
people kept coming in and out.
Yeah,
Well, we'll send a ticket to GoTo.
thank
Okay.
you. All right, well, I hope everyone applies to be on the committee again, and tell your friends if you think there's somebody that would be a good fit or interested in it, not even a good fit. And then I guess, are we ready to adjourn then? If we've tackled anything, if we've tackled everything, like, I don't know if anyone has any other issues we need to raise before we adjourn.
Just a motion to adjourn, I guess.
All right, anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll
Okay,
second.
perfect. Okay, just let us know in the chat box. Ready to adjourn.
Looks like everybody's in agreement.
I can't imagine.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Carolyn, I was going to ask you a question before everyone signs off, if you're still there.
Yeah, hold on just a sec.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a private